All right, everyone. Welcome to part 3 of this video series about installing the EVBMW Damien Maguire Gen 3 Prius logic board into the Gen 3 Prius inverter. So again, just continuing on from my previous 2 videos. So what I've got here, just a quick overview, is a 2012 Prius inverter. So what I've done is just got the top off this inverter. So the version that I have is this 9200 47210. So in the previous videos, what I've done is focus on installing the hardware in the inverter. So that's replacing the logic board in the inverter, and then also updating the resistor network for the DC to DC converter to work at 400 volts. So now that I've got everything installed, hardware wise, logic board wise, I've made all my connections. So at this point I just want to do some preliminary testing just to be sure that the logic board is functioning like it's supposed to and that it's able to produce some PWM signals. So again, here no high voltage is connected to the capacitor or the high voltage bus, so all I've got is this 12 volt battery, and yes, I am going to connect it up directly because I like to live life dangerously. So what I'll do is I'll connect up the logic board, power it up with the 12 volts, and then I'll with this, I think it's move forward pin, I'll connect it to 12 volts, and that will allow the inverter to switch on. So what I've got connected here is the 12 volts on the IDC connector, ground on the IDC connector, and then this move forward. So the power is pin 1 on the IDC connector, the move forward pin is pin 3 on the IDC connector, ground is pin 11. So what I'm going to do is connect, once I power the board up, I'm going to connect to the wireless access point my ESP Wi-Fi module. Then I'm going to bring up the Huebner inverter page that I've loaded onto that Wi-Fi module. I'm going to send it some manual commands, start the inverter, and then we're going to see some PWM signals on the oscilloscope if all goes to plan. So first things first, let's connect the 12 volts and power up the logic board like so. And then I got the red LED. It's LED 1 is a solid red, and then LED 2 is blinking, which means that the software has been loaded onto the chip. And then we've got the Wi-Fi module here, the ESP8266, which is powered on there. So that's all good signs. So then what I'll do is I'll connect to my ESP inverter. That's just what I called mine. And we'll hit connect. Then what I'll do is open up my favorite web browser here. And then I'll browse to 192.168.4.1. And that brings up the Huebner control interface. So at this point, what I'm going to do is start inverter in manual mode. So just click that button, and one of the positive things that you will see if all is going well is you'll get a message down here that says inverter started. So that's good. So now what I'll do is connect move forward in. So connect that to 12 volts. So now what I'll do is come down here very bottom, there's an area here called testing. So what I'll do is I'll enter one there, hit enter, one there, hit enter, and then if we go back, here in our messages, say set OK. So again, it's a good sign. So at this point what I'll do is probe the PWM signal that's coming out of the logic board and going into the 50-way connector. And so in order to do that, what I've done is I've connected the ground test clip from my oscilloscope to this copper strip, so ground from the logic board. And then what I've done is I've taken my test lead for my oscilloscope, and then I've just hooked it onto this multimeter probe. It's not connected to anything, so it just allows me to probe the pin on the logic board. So what I'm going to do is touch this probe to the R69 resistor. And what we should see on the oscilloscope is some PWM signals. So let's see. And there they are, PWM signals. And then what I can do is I can go back to my interface and I can hit stop inverter, and you see that the PWM signals have gone away. Alright, so that is that. I've stopped the inverter, and then I've got a message down here that says inverter halted, which is good news. So looks like this first phase of preliminary testing has gone well. So in the next phase, what I plan to do is connect up the high voltage bus, then connect the leads for MG2 and MG1 up to a motor. So that's going to be this guy. So it's a 1/2 horsepower motor, and then see if I can get this sucker to spin in volts hertz mode, and then be ready to connect to a higher voltage battery, and then I can test out my DC to DC converter. So that's going to be the next step, but this first step of testing, which is just verifying that the PWM signals are functioning, that's all gone well, so I'm ready to move on to phase 2 of the testing. So stay tuned for that in another episode. Bye guys.